So I found this interview by chance. I was just doing a deep dive on tinfoil hat. I wanted to know what Dr. Shiva had to say.
This is a state infrastructure on how political speech, how the government launders censorship to Twitter. So when you get thrown off, they can say, we had nothing to do with it, they did it.
It's the most explosive story ever, and no one covered it.
Free fell and they were silenced by the Sucker Carlsons and by the CNNs, right? Tucker's basically, makes all these grimaces, acts like, but he's paid and bought for too.
This is deep in the trenches, and every single human being alive should know about this, especially if you're American. This country is like the last stronghold against tyranny. We have due process, freedom of speech. These things are important, but they're being eroded, and most people don't know about it.
Twitter gives the government the back door to suppress speech. You see what I'm saying? Where government ends and where Twitter begins, we do not know. So here you have the government and here you have Twitter. Twitter, the government gives Twitter Section 230 immunity. Republicans didn't do anything.
Now, you may have heard of how journalist Alex Berenson sued Twitter for banning him from the platform. Dr. Shiva was also banned, but he was a political candidate, and his lawsuit involved elections.
So since we last spoke, Sam, if you remember, I was running for U.S. Senate after the Republican primary, where we went into the general elections, and we discovered that the voting machines in the United States have a feature of the ability to multiply votes by fractions. This isn't all the voting machines. So long before the Trump stuff occurred, we were the ones who exposed it, and how that led into two lawsuits filed in federal court. Both of my lawsuits have survived motions to dismiss, have gotten nearly 6 victories, and no mainstream media has covered it. And the reason they haven't covered it is because of the foundations of what this lawsuit represents. Fundamentally, what we've discovered is that it's not big tech. See, for far too long, the narrative has been Twitter, Facebook, big tech is a private actor and they take down people. What our lawsuit has shown at a historic level is that the government has an infrastructure that they created to actually silence political speech and speech if you criticize government using Twitter at the end of that process. All right? So it's fundamentally different. It's not that Twitter does it on its own, but Twitter is a state actor. But more importantly, when a tree falls in the forest, right, there's silence. The fact that no one in the mainstream media, is it Sucker Carlson or is it CNN, and all these people haven't picked up on this, speaks to this bigger issue of what's actually going on with government working with big media and government working with big tech. So what ended up happening is on the second day, the night of the second day of the lawsuit, I discovered the actual playbooks in a series of documents that was organized by the government and Twitter legal. It's called the Election Influence Operations Playbook. This is the operating manual of suppression of speech of American citizens organized at Harvard with all of these people. And when the judge saw this, he was like, basically, what's going on in this country? Already, and the 20th, I gave my opening statement to the judge. And I said, Judge, I've been a political activist all my life. Yes, I invented email. I did all these other things, but I know what it means to fight. I know what it means, what freedom is. And I gave my history. I said, I burned the South African flag on the steps of MIT protesting apartheid. No one shut me down. I fought for food service workers. No one shut me down. There's a banner of me saying, U.S. out of Iraq at my PhD graduation. Half of the crowd booed me and half of the crowd loved me. No one shut me down. I said, the first time I was shut down was on September 24, 2020 by the government of Massachusetts. And what I have discovered, Your Honor, is the actual infrastructure. This is the standardized operating procedure of how the government launders censorship. Launders censorship through Twitter. This is not Twitter. This is not Facebook. It's the government of the United States. It's the government of Massachusetts. And every state election director has access to this. And the judge, after he heard them, he goes, I want you to submit that as evidence. I come across what's called the Election Influence Operations Playbook, okay? Designed at the Belfer Institute at Harvard. And guess who are the authors of this playbook? The architects, Michelle Tassinari, the state election director, Twitter Legal, all right? And the National Association of State Election Directors. What does it show right there? This is what is misinformation. And it says, this is how you identify someone who spreads misinformation. Someone who says that people who run elections are corrupt.
Oh my God.
Is there everyone listening to this? And it says anyone who says that political partisans are stealing elections. Anyone who says COVID-19 concerns are impeding voting. Anyone who says there's been a failure in how the mechanics of elections are run. Bullet points. So when you identify someone like that, then you do an assessment of that influence operator. This is CIA deep state shit. Anyone who speaks out against a political official and argues that they may be corrupt. Let me repeat that again. It's in the playbook.
Oh my God.
Yes. Where is freaking Glenn Greenwald? Okay? Because he doesn't get to get his Academy Award on this. But anyway, so first time they took me off Twitter was October. Suspended me for 3 weeks because I was critiquing the government. That's it. So that October 30th, 2020 hearing was historic. But it was like a tree fell and there was silence. No major news media by the Sucker Carlsons and by the CNNs, right? Tucker's basically, makes all these grimaces, acts like, but he's paid and bought for it too. Right? On the 20th night, put together a brief, submitted it. We come in the next morning on the 21st, and the judge begins the hearing. I mean, this is a very eminent judge, appointed by Reagan, libertarian views, but he believes in the Constitution, one of the last remaining judges. And he turns to and there's about 300 people on the call. And he says, this lawsuit will more than likely be taught in every constitutional law course. He goes, you have raised substantial issues of constitutional questions. This is in black and white. This is no longer conspiracy theory. This is no longer, talking about aliens coming from another planet. This is being done in this country to Americans. And it's a step-by-step book. So it actually says, and by the way, the authors of this are Amy Cohen and Twitter Legal. And they were acting in the courtroom. We don't know who she is. Well, you're on the freaking front page as architects of this manual. And the manual goes step by step. There are 3 parts to this manual, okay? And
unbelievable.
Yeah. Why isn't this everywhere? This is a movement. This movement goes to the heart of what the founders of this country created. The reason my parents came to this country, they didn't know where they were going. The reason that your parents and your parents' parents got on boats with suitcases, they didn't know where they were going because of one singular reason. This country has a First Amendment. And the First Amendment was created that you could say whatever the F you wanted against your government. And they gave you the Second Amendment that you could protect yourself. But the First Amendment is a historic movement in the history of humanity. It said that you could be a human being. You were not a slave. And the reason we got into this condition that the fact garbage like this is out there and this is being executed is because of the Republican and Democrat fuckers, okay? Both of them, Trump and Bernie. And if you're a Trumper and you still want to give money to Trump, get your head out of you know what. Because he's part of WWF wrestling. He didn't do shit against election fraud. In November, I had my whole infrastructure and team set up. We're the ones, if you saw, exposed the Michigan elections. It went viral. All right? No one paid us money. And when that went viral, Mark Meadows called me from the White House. And my stuff was going viral. I was going after the real election fraud, not mail-in ballots, which is what the right wing does, or voter suppression, what the left wing does. I was going after those voting machines, which have the ability to flip votes, Sam. And that's the real crime scene. Both Democrats and Republicans have been using that. They will never allow someone of the dark matter to ever rise up because they can flip those votes. And it's embedded. It's not the vendors. It is the Republicans and Democrats who can leverage that. So we showed that. So when I did Michigan, Mark Meadows calls me and I said, Mark, what do you want? He goes, I want to help you. I'll go, really? Give me all the data. You and the RNC have all the data. I'll do math analysis all day long. You're talking to an MIT guy with 4 degrees. Well, days went by, nothing. And this is the heart of when things are urgent, right? Trump should be hitting this hard. RNC calls me, Ronna McDaniel's office, the head of the RNC. They go, we want to help you. Give me data. They go, okay, we're going to be in front of the servers. We're going to give you data tomorrow. No data. Eric Trump reaches out to me because that's when I started having problems with Trump. I gave the guy money. I supported him, have been loyal to him. And I said in a tweet, I said, dear President Trump and dear Mr. Biden, I have unequivocal proof that the real crime scene is these voting machines. Then, and that went viral. I think it went out to 10 million people. Then Eric Trump reaches out to me. These guys never supported our campaign because I was putting them on notice. And I said, Eric, I don't think people want to support your father. I don't think they really want to hit this. No one's giving me data. I had to do this on my own. No one paid us a cent, Sam. We did this all on our own. So he says, oh, go talk to the Trump campaign lawyer. So here the White House has called me. The RNC's called me. And now I'm talking to the Trump campaign. Oh, yeah, we have the data. Are you going to give it to me? Dead silence. They didn't do jack. You know what they did, though? Go look at their emails starting in mid-November. They changed their direction from voter fraud to election fraud, and they raised $300 million. We did all the hard work. The Arizona hearings, where people will tell you, was a historic event, where I showed, again, I did all the math analysis, me, Phil Evans, Doug Applegate. No one paid us a cent, Sam. They're collecting 300 million freaking bucks. And that's why that Arizona thing is going on, because of the data I shared. And you can go ask Mark Fincham. He said, Shiva made the change. Rudy Giuliani cross-examined me. You can hear all of it. And then finally, after 3 years, Trump says, impossible result, supporting me. He did that because the Trumpers were starting to realize, wait a minute, this guy, Dr.shiva, is actually going after the real issue. So they did that to maintain credibility. So right now, on this issue of big tech, yeah, Ron DeSantis is, I'm going to fine people $250K. Well, you're not going to be able to uphold that because you're not going after the real issue. James O'Keefe is making money hitting, CNN. But why don't you put a wire on Fox News? It's a left-right narrative, Sam. And that's why change does not occur in this country. And that's why we got to this situation when some garbage like this can be there. And every American citizen listening to this is a state infrastructure on how political speech, how the government launders censorship to Twitter. So when you get thrown off, they can say, we had nothing to do with it. They did it. So here you have the government and here you have Twitter. Twitter, the government gives Twitter Section 230 immunity. Republicans didn't do anything. At the latter 14 days, they hit Trump, right? Not throughout his entire thing. They needed Trump. And then Twitter gives the government a backdoor to suppress speech. You see what I'm saying? Where government ends and where Twitter begins, we do not know. Wave and particle are one. So